Let's talk about stage fright. Do you have it? If you do, totally normal. If you don't, that's normal too. But know that it's not a big deal either way. A lot of comedians get stage fright or used to have stage fright or get it every once in a while. It's a totally normal thing for everybody, or most people at least. I know that Dane Cook used to get some really bad social anxiety when he was in high school. Not a comedian, but a performer, John Lennon, said that he would throw up before performances. I know that Steve Martin said that he used to get stage fright throughout his entire career. But you got to look at those instances of stage fright as a little bit different. Because when Steve Martin, for instance, had 30 years, something like that, in his stand-up career, and he's been doing it for so long, he knows how it's going to go for the most part. He knows the range of ways that it could go. He knows that if it goes really well, awesome. If it doesn't go really well, so what? He's going to get up tomorrow, have basically the same life as he had before, right? It's not a big deal. He knows the tools for how to deal with those events that could come up that might be scary. And he has the emotional tools to regulate how he's feeling and just feel better as a result. And so stage fright would hit somebody who's got that much experience in a different way, in a much less powerful way. And so one of the things that I want to do for you in this session is help you build some tools and some emotional tools so that stage fright doesn't have the power over you that it did before these sessions. And also, it'll help diminish your stage fright in the first place. And so maybe you'll have less of it to manage. Okay? So, here we go. Oh, and by the way, I used to have stage fright too. I don't really have it anymore. I mean, now when I get it, every once in a while, it's kind of novel. I kind of go ooh, haven't felt that in a while, So it's kind of nice now. And this is coming from when I started doing stand-up comedy. I had to get an inhaler. I actually would hyperventilate. I've never had asthma or anything. Just from stand-up comedy, my doctor prescribed me an inhaler. And I don't know, it could have been placebo or something. He could have known that it was just in my brain. But I needed that for a few weeks. And then slowly over time, my stage fright went away. And that is one of the tools that we'll get into, which is that you just immerse yourself in the activity. You do it over and over again. Your stage fright will slowly go away over time. It'll go away over time or get less and less and less. But that is something that is just in the course of doing. In the meantime, let's build some tools for how to deal with stage fright. And the first thing that you should do when you want to diminish your stage fright is understand what it is. There is a theory that I think is a pretty good theory that humanity throughout most of its existence was small tribes. That's how we existed. We lived just with 10 or 15, 30 people. And anytime we would see a group of strangers all staring at us, that was a very frightening situation. Because that was a situation where if you made the wrong move, they could attack you or they could ostracize you from their group. And being ostracized back then could mean you live alone in the forest. So it was actually a pretty scary thing. And so hundreds of thousands of years of that just built into us. And now today, we have a civilized society, subjective, definitely more civilized than when we lived in tribal times many, many years ago. But we've only had this society for a very short period of time. And so we have these vestigial reactions to getting in front of a crowd of fear. And that fear is irrational. Maybe a little bit makes some sense, I guess. But there's got to be a point. You have to recognize that at a certain point, the amount of stage fright that we often feel getting in front of a crowd way outstrips the importance of that event, especially in stand-up comedy. It's silly. It's a silly art form. Really, who cares? You do it and then it's over, and then you do it again the next night. No single set matters that much, right? but we still feel a lot of fear about it. I mean, think about it. Like, what's the worst that could happen? You have a bad set, and the audience goes, I didn't like that. And then 3 comics later, or the next time they feel hunger, they completely forget about you. It doesn't matter. And then the next time they see you, if you do better, they go like, oh, wow, they improved. And then they like you. That's it. You're not going to lose your job. You've never heard of anyone losing their job as a result of doing a stand-up set that doesn't go well. You're not going to lose friends. You have friends for reasons other than something so petty as whether you do well in stand-up. These are a group of strangers you're not going to see again. Or it's a group of people who love you regardless. It's just not that big of a deal. But we feel this vestigial reaction from when it was more of a big deal. So knowing that is good. It's helpful, but only a little helpful. I want to give you some tools to deal with the stage fright that include this, but it's not limited to it, all right? And so a lot of the tools that you can find in a lot of places, they cover what you can do after you feel the reaction of stage fright. But that is, and it's somewhat helpful, but it's not the most helpful, because think about the 3 things that you can control: your perception, your reaction, and the actions that you take as a result. And most of those solutions out there, they take for granted your perception. You have a reaction, now what can you do that's effective, right? But if you think about your perception first, you may diminish that fear, that stage fright, already. And so it becomes less important, or at least easier, to employ actions that make you feel better. This is kind of a push the boulder around the hill rather than push the boulder up the hill strategy. And so, I'm all about finding ways to make the hard things easy rather than do the hard things despite they're hard. So what I want you to do when you feel stage fright, I want your next thought to be, that's not right. This other better perception is the correct perception, okay? So it's really hard to change your reaction, to not react a certain way. It's difficult, but what you can do is notice your reaction and then adjust based on that. So notice that you're feeling stage fright and then go, no, that's not right. This other thing is right. And here are some options for what this other thing could be, this other perception. You might think this audience is enjoying the comedians. They are enjoying the show. They're having a good time. Even if that is a quiet audience, you could think they are having a good time, but they're just not emoting, which happens sometimes. Sometimes an audience is just on the quiet side. Sometimes an audience doesn't want to be the one to start cheering, because then they'll be caught off guard. Like they'll be singled out. They'll be the person who everybody notices as the one making sounds. And you'll also notice in those kinds of shows, those people, those audience members are more likely to come up to you after the show and say, good job, because they didn't feel comfortable emoting at the time, which would have let you know that they thought you did a good job. And so know that sometimes the audience is just quiet on the inside. Okay, that's one perception. Another perception, these are a group of potential friends that are going to, maybe hang out with you later, like you a lot. You're going to like them. This is a community building exercise, and that's really cool. Another perception that you can have is that you have the honor of being able to provide these people with a good time, to show them this content that you've been working on. That is so awesome. That's so cool that you get to do that. Another perception is that this is science. You're doing experiments. You are testing things out so that you can improve over time and eventually, someday, get that perfect, amazing set. And then realize there's probably some improvements that you could make even after it reaches perfect. But this is just a step in that process. Another option for perception is nihilism, which I know sounds a little weird considering those other ones have been hopeful and fun. But No perception is reality. Everyone is equally true. Just pick one that works for you. And for some people, nihilism is perfect. Thinking like, what does this matter? This is just one more thing in a very weird life. So gotta fill the time with activities somehow. I'll do a stand-up set. Some people might hear that and go like, that's weird. But some people will be like, that's perfect for me. I'll take it. And that might be perfect for you too. So you could try any one of those perceptions or more. I mean, you can think of others. I mean, there's acting. Maybe you can decide that this is not even you on stage. It doesn't matter how you're feeling because your character oozes confidence or is flirty or comfortable or whatever, right? And so you get to separate yourself from that event. Any one of those perceptions equally true because there's no objective reality. And that leads me to my next point, which is there is kind of a negotiation of vibes going on. And if you treat your nervous perception as reality, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The audience goes, this is nerve-wracking. This is awkward. Ooh, and then they get uncomfortable, right? You treat it like it's uncomfortable, so the audience treats it as uncomfortable. And then you notice the audience getting uncomfortable. And then you go, I was right. It is uncomfortable. And then it feels more like an objective reality, but really it's just this downward spiral that you're driving downward. Instead, you could say to yourself, this is not uncomfortable. Even if the audience is quiet, you could say to yourself, this is fun, right? And that's equally true. It really is up to you. The emotion that you have inside and that you project outside, those are tools that you can use to help the audience feel certain ways. And so if you project strongly that you're having fun or that you're confident or that you're comfortable or flirty or whatever you decide, you can shift the audience more towards your opinion. You may not always get them all the way there, but you'll make it a little more your vibe than it would have been elsewise, right? It's that negotiation. If what you're giving them is so fun that they go like, well, I mean, yeah, that's good. Okay, I'm having fun now. Then yeah, you can sometimes convince a bad audience to be a good audience. It's an unspoken negotiation that you're having with the audience, and that is a powerful tool that you should not cede to the audience or to your cognitive distortions. What you feel isn't reality. It's one of many, many perceptions that you could have. Now, I'm not telling you to lie to the audience and say that something isn't happening. You can definitely be aware of the situation. This is more of an emotional level than anything else, right? So you can say, you guys aren't laughing. You can say, I'm lost. You can say those things. You can say that joke bombed. But saying it like, that joke bombed. Or saying it like, that joke bombed. Or saying it like, that joke bombed. Those are all different on an emotional level, right? Some of those keep the audience comfortable. Some of those make the audience uncomfortable. And so that emotional level is what I'm talking about. So you can be, I'm lost, that's scary, or I'm lost and that's a lot of fun. It's up to you. You may be thinking, I'm not feeling that though. How do I project that? Well, there is some acting involved. This is theater, right? And if you can feel that way, if you can get yourself to feel that way, that's even better. It's so helpful, and definitely work on that. But if you can't and you're just acting, that's okay. That's normal. It's kind of expected. And if the audience notices that you're acting, that's okay too. This is theater. So they kind of know that they're going to detect some acting probably. That's okay. They don't know what you're actually feeling underneath, for one. And they will think that the real emotion underneath your acting layer is probably closer to your acting layer than anything else, right? It may not be exactly there, but they'll think that it's closer to that than something else. So it's helpful to act even if you can't actually feel that way. By the way, the way that you feel inside, we just naturally cover up. If it's a bad feeling, it's just totally natural. That's why sometimes you may notice that when you're feeling awkward in a social situation, you'll notice yourself smiling involuntarily. And that's your just natural reaction to like cover the feelings inside. That works in your favor when you're on stage. The audience has a really hard time noticing if you are afraid on the inside. So it's good to separate that. What you feel isn't what they're perceiving, and it's definitely not the reality.